the 28th of May 2023, a day before the inauguration of Nigerian President Mr. Bela Tinubu. His wife and First Lady of Nigeria, Mrs. Oluremi Tinubu, said this:
Nigeria's wealth is the commonwealth of all. It belongs to everyone. God has blessed my family. We don't need the wealth of Nigeria to survive, but to do the right thing.
Now, if you don't believe her, here's some proof for you. President Bela Tinubu is said to be worth several hundreds of millions of dollars, a vast real estate holdings, as well as investments scattered around energy and a handful of other sectors of the Nigerian economy. But it's not only the president's family that has done well for themselves now. Here is Nyesom Wike, the current minister of the Federal Capital Territory of Nigeria. He's said to be one of the richest former governors in Nigeria. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar is said to own several properties in Dubai. And there are lots of other politicians with business holdings and investments scattered around the country. This has left me wondering, if politicians are just public servants, why are they so rich and the people they serve so poor? In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how these folks get to be so wealthy. We will look at the laws that have enabled some of these politicians to take advantage of the system and how this affects you, the average Nigerian. President Bela Tinubu worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Nyesom Wike worth millions of dollars. George Akume worth millions of dollars. Guess what all these men have in common? They are all career politicians who have been directly or indirectly involved in government since Nigeria's return to democracy in 1999. But there's another thing all three have in common that will be very relevant to our story much later, and that is they were all former governors of their respective states for 8 years. Now, while politics in Nigeria has become something for the highest bidder, there seems to be a reason why. That could be the high returns involved. And I'm not talking about the looting or embezzlement we immediately associate with politicians now. Rather, I'm talking about the insane salaries and allowances that these people accumulate throughout their time in office. Added to all of these benefits, some politicians have also found ways to build highly profitable companies from the ground up as a result of government contracts they get while in office. And when their time is up, they also get something called a severance package that is sometimes worth 300% of their basic salaries as presidents, governors, senators, or other political office holders. Now, let's start with the salaries and you'll see what I mean. This is Tunde, an average Nigerian graduate looking for a federal government job that pays the minimum wage, just so he can afford to feed and stop depending on his poor mother, who has been catering for his basic needs ever since his father died. Tunde's worth, according to the federal government of Nigeria, is 30,000 naira. That is less than $30 for an entire month's labor. Now, to put this in perspective, it would take Tunde 50 years of saving his entire salary to get 1 year's basic salary of a Nigerian senator that earns 1.5 million naira monthly and still gets another 52 million naira in office running allowances. And what is the job of this senator again? Yes, they made the law that kept the minimum wage at 30,000 naira, while JAS is set at 1.5 million naira per month. But then something crazy happened. There's this body saddled with the responsibility of determining how much is appropriate for political office holders in Nigeria, including the president, vice president, governors, deputy governors, ministers, even commissioners, and to cap it all, the legislators inclusive. This body is known as the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission. Their job, among others, is to monitor the increase and disbursement of revenue from the Federation account and reviewing from time to time the amount being allocated to different things, especially salaries. What happened was that this body woke up one morning and said that they realized that Nigerian politicians were suffering too much. So they needed to adjust the salary structure to help these politicians survive the difficult times we live in. Yeah, I'm not kidding. Guess what? They proposed a 114% increase in the salaries of these political office holders, including the president, vice president, governors, lawmakers, as well as judicial office holders. Remember Tunde with his 30,000 naira per month salary? He is not getting any of this increase, even though his cost of living just shot through the roof as a result of the recent removal of fuel subsidy, which I talked about in this video linked right up here. Well, Nigerians cried out and that salary review was later abandoned. But this didn't stop the politicians from getting something called hardship allowance. You see, aside from the ridiculously high salaries paid out to Nigerian politicians every month, they also get some allowances like utilities, entertainment recess, personal assistant, vehicle fueling, duty tour, domestic staff, vehicle maintenance, constituency allowance, wardrobe allowance, household maintenance, newspaper, periodic allowances, and a lot more. For the senators, these allowances amount to 52 million naira every year. But the ridiculous wealth of these politicians didn't just come from their salaries and allowances alone. Since Nigeria's return to democracy in 1999, a lot of money has been allocated to something called constituency projects, recommended by these lawmakers. However, as a result of corruption, embezzlement, and other financial malpractices, these projects are not even carried out. For instance, you often hear of empowerment programs that get commissioned all the time. These items are sometimes hoarded by sponsors and not distributed until the next budget cycle, where in some cases now, the same items are rebudgeted and duplicated. In recent years, the budget of the zonal intervention projects has been 100 billion naira shared among the 469 lawmakers in the National Assembly. But the specific details on the projects, including project type, cost, and the target sector, are always kept secret. According to reports, the annual 100 billion naira is always shared on an 60-40% ratio by the two legislative chambers. The House of Representatives takes the bulk with 60 billion naira and the Senate takes 40 billion naira. This means the 360 members of the lower chamber have 60 billion to initiate, implement, or complete projects in their various constituencies, while the 109 members in the Senate have 40 billion to do the same. But the implementation is where the math changes. Only a fraction of the said amount budgeted for each chamber gets to the lawmakers. The fraction comes after a series of deductions are made. Starting with the leadership of the House now, out of the 40 billion naira budgeted for the Senate, it is said that the leadership of the chamber takes 20 billion to fund projects in their own constituencies. The remaining 20 billion goes to about 100 other members of the chamber. But you have to note here that the 20 billion naira special funding for the chamber's leadership does not exclude the said leadership from benefiting in the general fund, as they still nominate projects to be funded with the balance of 20 billion naira. Even though the projects are advertised in line with the Public Procurement Act, only contractors nominated by the lawmakers are often awarded these contracts. At times, some lawmakers nominate companies in which they have interest in, like companies belonging to friends and family members. In some cases, contractors awarded jobs only move the cash to the lawmakers' accounts, who nominated them for the contracts in the first place, and these contracts remain unimplemented. In one exclusive interview, former Nigerian Senator Shehu Sani disclosed how the constituency projects are given on a zonal basis, with almost every senator going with a constituency fund of about 200 million naira. But If the senators are not given direct access to this money, how do they benefit from the funds? One of the means used is by inflating the budgets of government agencies. For instance, the Small and Medium Enterprise Development Agency of Nigeria, an agency under the Ministry of Trade and Investment, had its budget upped to 14.85 billion from 11.02 billion. Similar suspicious appropriation can be seen in the budget of the Border Communities Development Agency, which is domiciled under the office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. Lawmakers raised the agency's budget from the 3.73 billion proposed by former President Muhammadu Buhari to 5.46 billion naira. The Independent Corrupt Practices Commission has accused these two agencies of budget overpricing as a channel for embezzling funds. In August 2019, the ICPC recovered items such as motorbikes, grinding machines, and tricycles estimated to be worth 170 million naira, stored in a compound reportedly belonging to Senator Chukwuka Utazi, who is representing Enugu North Senatorial District in Enugu State. In another instance, in 2022, a report implicated a senator representing Benue North East Senatorial District, where the project he sponsored belonged to City Science and Technical Academy, a school he owns. In Abuja, a training and empowerment program for women and youths worth over 149.9 million naira was reportedly awarded to Aljabi Integrated Nigeria Limited, but against the due process policy of the federal government, as the company is said to be owned by a certain Sokodabo Hamza, a relative of the sponsoring lawmaker. In a similar case of abuse of office, a contract worth 199.9 million naira was said to have been awarded to Sinti Nigeria Limited by the Sokoto Rima Basin Authority in November 2020. It was later found that the company belongs to the sponsor of the project, a certain Jibril Barrel of Kano Senatorial District. Now, in most constituencies across the country, voters have been brainwashed by their representatives into believing that constituency projects such as roads, water projects, electricity distribution, and a whole lot of others are being personally funded by these lawmakers, contrary to the fact that constituency and other projects are actually funded by the government with public funds. And when they are done using the public money to award multi-million-dollar contracts to companies owned by their friends and loved ones, at the end of their term in office, these politicians are able to secure their financial future by connecting a pipe to the national treasury through something called severance package. Holding a political office in Nigeria allows one to be paid for a lifetime. As approved by the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission, political office holders are entitled to 300% of their annual salary as a severance package. In addition, some ex-governors will be paid 100% of their annual basic salary for life after leaving office. Remember that current President Bela was the governor of Lagos State, and there are several other former governors serving in the current administration. So here's the deal. They all have a pension for life, but they are not alone. The large severance packages for the president, vice president, state governors, legislators, and other political appointees that left office in May 2023 was put at a whopping sum of 63.45 billion naira. This was money paid by the Nigerian government to people leaving office. According to this revenue mobilization body, the former President Buhari will get a severance pay of 10.5 million naira, while former Vice President Osinbajo will receive 9.09 million. The 8 special advisors in the presidency are expected to get 5.8 million naira each, totaling 46.64 million naira. They would also get new cars every 3 years, a house in any part of the country, free medical care, as well as furniture allowance and car maintenance allowance. They are also entitled to cooks, stewards, gardeners, and other domestic staff, among other perks, including policemen and Department of State Services operatives for life. According to civil society group SERAP, There are governors collecting life pensions as former governors while also serving in the Senate and still getting paid as senators. About 14 ex-governors who are current senators are entitled to double pay as a result of this. Some of these former governors were also said to have enacted laws for their extravagant funeral ceremonies, that is, when they die. And this is why these Nigerian politicians are so damn rich. But how does this affect you, the average Nigerian? On June 30th, 2023, the Debt Management Office announced Nigeria's public debt of 87.38 trillion naira. That is $113 billion. The figure represents an increase of 75.29%, or 37.53 trillion naira, compared to the 49.85 trillion naira recorded at the end of March 2023. This further highlights the state of Nigeria's economy. There are very few well-equipped hospitals to serve over 200 million citizens. But these politicians, even those out of office, still get medical allowance to allow them to travel to good hospitals with specialists abroad, while the average Nigerian is left to his fate. Security in the country is so poor that a sitting senator is threatening to resign. What becomes of the average Nigerian that doesn't have access to state resources to employ the services of police escorts or DSS to follow them about? Inflation is extremely high, as the naira has lost over 40% of its value in 2023 alone. Nigerians can barely afford to buy onions to cook their meals. Now, if the people cannot eat, cannot go out, and keep dying from poor medical services, why are the few in control of the nation's resources allowed to keep enriching themselves in this manner? I guess I'll never know. Thanks for watching this video. If you found it interesting, do well to check out this one showing up on your screen right now, and I'll see you inside.